Hello everybody, welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Masters DFS Tactics Show. We have a lot to get into, but first, a big midweek shout out. Congratulations to Bobo, my friend Bobo, who also had the outright win on Connecticut before the NCAA tournament. A big hit for you, so congratulations, Bobo. And yours truly also had Connecticut outright before the start of the tournament. Was sweating that one out a little bit, especially during the show Monday evening. So a little bit of a backup plan and a little bit of extra bankroll heading into the first major of the year, the Masters. So we have a lot to get into. Weather forecast, top pivots, fades, 6Ks, all of that. Let's not waste any time. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler and a much better DFS player. There are tons of great tools out there, no doubt about it. I simply believe Fantasy National is the best to give you the information you need to dominate, especially in weeks like this with massive GPP prize contests, to be able to hit your outright wagers, your parlays, all of that stuff. Fantasy National is simply the best, so go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media. This is Twitter and Instagram, where I post research every week around the golf tournament, generally around prior winners and course information. So if you want to see that, give me a follow at those two places. Twitter is also where I post my betting cards weekly for the PGA, and tonight will be no exception. After the show, we'll have that out later on this evening. And then I have also been doing something new over on Twitter, a 3 up, 3 down for Major League Baseball. 3 DFS plays that I like for the day, 3 up, and then obviously 3 down, 3 players that I don't think are good value. Have had mixed results with that, although the past couple of days have been pretty promising, so perhaps heating up with that as well. So if you're interested in that content, give me a follow over at Twitter. And then Twitch, the link to my Twitch channel is below. This is where I do all of my in-depth research. It's much more laid back. We have music going in the background, much more laid back, but you have more direct access to the thought process that I go into as a statistical analyst, looking at patterns, trying to decipher various patterns in the numbers and all of that. We also do a little bit of gaming. So if you're interested in the in-depth research, a look behind the cover or the curtain, if you will, or interested in other content such as gaming and whatnot, give me a follow over at my Twitch channel. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all. Who are your wagers that you have placed this week? What are you going to be doing about the live players for your DFS lineups? Are you going to be using any? Are you going to be focusing on them, thinking they might be under-owned? Are you having any 6Ks? What pivots, what fades, all of the good stuff to a normal DFS Tactics show. So I hope to hear from you all in chat. So let's get into it. Let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2023 Masters. And we are going to start over at Windfinder, and hopefully my camera decides to focus in. Maybe. Evening, P. Thanks for jumping in chat. Hey, James. Glad to see you two join. Sorry, let me get, hopefully my camera decides to focus here. There we go, maybe. Anyway, so the forecast for the Masters looks a little bit better than what it did early on in the week. Thursday, there might be a little bit of rain in the morning, but honestly, not a lot of wind. It looks fantastic for scoring tomorrow, and this is looking like the best chance to get or go low to get your birdies this week for the Masters. You see tomorrow looks pretty pristine. Not really any kind of favor, I don't think. Now, when you move down to Friday morning looks great. Maybe a little bit of rain, perhaps. But then the wind really starts to pick up in the afternoon, and the wind changes direction. You see the cardinality all Thursday is this, mainly south to north or southwest to northeast. And then when this cold front comes in, which looks like it's a cold front. I mean, I'm not a meteorologist, won't ever pretend to be. But it looks like a cold front coming through. And when it does, the wind is going to switch direction to a more northeast to southwest cardinality. And the sustained winds and gusts really pick up. So it's going to be very vital, and I do have the leaderboard up. It's going to be vital to check tee times because as of right now, anybody who has an extremely late Friday afternoon tee time is going to get the worst end of the draw, at least in terms of forecast, and all I can do is go by the forecast. So take this information as you will. But that is what I see as a pretty severe disadvantage for players that are teeing off Friday afternoon. That does not mean that they're also teeing off Thursday morning. That's why I've brought up the PGA Tour leaderboard. It is not a straight AM PM wave per se with only 90 players. They have jumbled tee times a little bit. And then if we zoom out, if you will, and look at the regular forecast, the entire weekend looks pretty miserable. You see the high for Saturday at 50 and lots of gusty winds. Looks like rain all day, maybe even a half an inch of rain. So there's a possibility that it could get pushed back. And then Sunday looks more of the same. So a lot of wind in the forecast with the exception of tomorrow. And again, it doesn't look, or it looks like there's a little bit of wind in the morning, but when you go to the super forecast, it really does kind of die off by the time the players will start. So with that, I'll keep Windfinder up, but we're going to go to the Masters leaderboard, and I went ahead and went to round 2. Round 1 again looks pretty equal, all things considered. So the severe downgrade or the disadvantage that players seem to have is in the afternoon, especially the late afternoon, starting around, what do you want to say, maybe 2 p.m. It looks like is when the heavy stuff looks like it's going to come in. Of course, it could come a little earlier, a little later, but certainly, without a doubt, the later the tee time on Friday, the worse off you are. So thinking that a round is roughly 4 hours for pros, I'm going to go from noon forward. Noon forward would mean that the majority of the round is in the wind. So at least the back 9, if not more, of your second round would be in the wind. So the players that are, that have the worst end of the draw per se, you have the amateur Harrison Crow, Minwoo Lee, Larry Mize, Sergio Kazuki Higa, I think it's Higa, and Keith Mitchell. Patrick Reed, Adams Vincent, and Sahith Tagala have a bad draw. Mackenzie Hughes, Shane Lowry, Thomas Peters. Another amateur, Mateo Fernandez de Oliveira, I think. Seamus Power, Bubba Watson. And then the worst of the tee times look to be Abraham Ancer, Keegan Bradley, Chris Kirk, Victor Xander, and unfortunately Tiger. Patrick Cantley, Kurt Kitayama, Adam Scott. John Rahm, Justin Thomas, and Cameron Young have a very horrendous draw teeing off late on Friday. And then probably the worst draw, Sungjae, Hideki, and Cameron Smith. So there's a look at the players, and I'll try to highlight the ones that I think have a horrendous draw this week. This group of 10 tee times, anything after noon on Friday, I am very, very cautious in terms of using that player, considering that, as we saw, most of the field won't have to deal with wind on Friday, and then the latter, third of the field or so looks like it does have to deal with it. So on the other end of the spectrum, these players look like they've gotten the great end of the draw. They don't look like they have much of anything to deal with on Friday morning. Cameron Champ, somebody I'm very high on. You'll see Taylor Moore, Potgeiter, the amateur, and Charles Schwartzel, Bryson Molinari Poston, Ben Carr, Longer Mito, Brooks, Danny Willett, Gary Woodland. Let's see, is there a feature group in the morning? It might be this one. Fitz, Colin Morikawa, Will Zalatoris. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if they are, in fact, a feature group. I would tend to think they are. Tony Finau, Fleetwood, and Spieth, probably a feature group. Looks like they have a pretty good draw. Sam Burns, Tom Kim, Rory, Scotty Scheffler, Max Homa. So these players up here look like they've gotten a fantastic draw for the Masters, not having to deal with any wind really Thursday. Nobody really is dealing with any wind. And then Friday morning looks to be pretty pristine. The majority of these guys, if not, they're going to get the majority of their round in, if not all of it, without any wind as of right now. So there's a look at the kind of tee time discrepancy with the forecast that I see, 12 hours, 10 hours out from the Masters. So with that, and we'll keep that up as well, we're going to move to Fantasy National very quickly. I have this dated all the way back to 2021, and with the moderate and windy filter selected. Your top players in the wind since the beginning of 2021: Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, Jon Rahm, Joaquin Niemann, Jordan Spieth, Matt Fitzpatrick, Tony Finau, Rory McIlroy, Max Homa, and Xander Schauffele. So again, use all of this information to your liking, to your will. If you don't think the weather is going to be that big of a factor, or for example, one of the players, or a couple of players, Jon Rahm, Justin Thomas, are very good in the wind. Perhaps you don't downgrade them much at all. That is on you. I'm just here to present the information for you. Now, if a player makes the cut, it looks like Thursday or Saturday and Sunday, maybe even into Monday, you're going to have wind regardless. So it looks like players are going to have to deal with wind at some point during the Masters. It just depends on how much you have to deal with before you make the cut. If early tee times are favorable, I'll have to use Mike Weir, Sandy Lyle, Freddie Couples, Larry Mize. I mean, shoot, you might as well throw Jack in there. Who else is honorary starting? But yes, don't know if I would go too crazy with those four names you said. Although, to be fair to Fred Couples, he's actually played fairly well here. Tom Watson. That's right, Tom Watson. So yes, dang it, wrong way. I always gotta center that camera. Ugh. So we can look at, to be honest, like Jose Maria Olazabal has a longtime champion. Bernhard Longer would be another player that, if you're going with the Friday morning prefer, are the historical champions that you might want to consider. Or quote lifetime members or whatever. But honestly, some of them are playing a little bit later. Has there been a tournament in 2023 that hasn't been delayed for weather? That's a good question. There might have been one or two. The match play wasn't, but that is a very unique format. That's a very good question. I don't know if there has or not. Now, most of the time, the PGA Tour is delayed in the early part of the calendar year because of daylight savings time, which you can argue whatever you want to about the legitimacy or not of daylight savings time in general. But now, there's nothing the PGA Augusta National can do with the rain in the forecast. That's completely out of their control. But when you have these full field events early in the year, they do run into light issues just because of daylight savings time. But you're right, James. There have been a lot of delays this year. I can't think of anything quickly off the top of my head other than the match play. Because I feel like the American Express was. I know the Farmers was. Was Phoenix delayed? It might have been, but it seems like there's been a lot this year. So anyway, there's a look at your top wind players in the field this week for the Masters. And again, if a player makes the cut, it looks like they're going to be dealing with wind all weekend. Then conversely, players that haven't been good in the wind, Sam Bennett, Phil Mickelson, Cameron Champ, Vijay Singh, Minwoo Lee, Adams Vinson, Thomas Peters, Mackenzie Hughes, Bubba Watson, Francesco Molinari, Higa, English, and on down. So if you feel like a player is going to make the cut, you might want to be a little bit cautious on depending on these players moving forward after that. But other than that, that's what I have for you in terms of just information around wind, the forecast, all of that stuff. And it's important to note that just getting 6 of 6 through this week is not going to be enough. Most of the time in a normal event, sure, 6 of 6 is the goal. But with only 90 players and more than half of them are going to make the cut, it's the top 50 and anybody within 10 strokes, there's a decent chance that you could get 2/3 of the field into the cut. So you're really going to have to find the guys that are going to take advantage of all 4 rounds. So that's why I emphasize that just because a guy is going to make the cut, you might not want to use them as much if they are bad in the wind, because they are going to be dealing with wind throughout the weekend. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and move to the mixed condition model that I have made for this week. Go through what metrics and filters I used, and then we'll go into the rankings and start making some lineups per usual. We looked at my mixed condition model from last year, and it was fairly good. It was decent. Wasn't spectacular by any means, but it wasn't poor either. And there was quite an emphasis on a couple of factors, and I tried to keep that consistent this year, but I did change a few things around. So, first thing, 15% strokes gained approach. Now, we don't get strokes gained data for the Masters. That's proprietary, at least here at Fantasy National. But this is a ball striking course. It is long. With the amount of rain in the forecast, iron play is just going to be emphasized, I think. Distance is also going to be a big thing, so we'll talk about that after a little bit. But you're just going to have to hit your irons very well here. And that a lot of that's around greens and regulation too. 15% in strokes gained approach is one of the 3 or 4 metrics that I've made the most important this week. 10% in strokes gained around the green. Look, the Augusta National, the Masters is tough. You're not going to hit every green. You're not going to hit a lot of the greens. So you're going to have to be very, very good around the green. And this is where my model really lacked last year, admittedly, is that I didn't give enough weight into around the green play. Now, I don't have any scrambling. I just have 10% around the green. So that is the first kind of built-in weakness to my mixed condition model. If strokes gained around the green when it's difficult, or perhaps on bent greens, anything with a filter for strokes gained around the green, I'll be weak to. I just decided to look at who has been the best strokes gained around the green player recency bias since the beginning of 2023, and I have that at 10%. So again, no scrambling, nothing with a filter. So that could be a bit of a weakness, but I just wanted to see it in a broad view. So 10% around the green, 5% on bent or fast and lightning bent greens. Now, I went back and forth with myself whether I should just look at lightning, whether I should just look at the Masters course. But the reason why I didn't go, so let me handle those in 2 separate ways. The reason why I included the fast is that with the amount of rain in the forecast, it is conceivable, at least logically, that these greens are slowed down a little bit with all the rain, so they could be fast and lightning, because most of the time they are lightning. So that is why I included the fast filter in the week this week, because of the rain. And the reason why I used all bent instead of just the Masters is that if I were to use just the Masters, this would have included the fall or the November 2020 Masters when DJ won. And I do not want to consider that Masters. I think that is a complete outlier. Even though it was on the same course, it was a completely different time of the year, different weather, different everything. So I didn't want to consider or include that in my data set. So that is why I didn't use just the Masters putting or putting just at Augusta National. So that's the explanation on why I'm using fast and lightning bent going back to 2021. I only have it at 5%, so if putting is more important, less important, or not important at all, that's another perhaps built-in weakness, but 5% in putting on fast and lightning bent greens. Now going into scoring, again, my preference is to combine a scoring metric like birdies gained, bogeys avoided, eagles, birdies are better, with a scoring filter like difficult to par, easy to par, all that. But if you wanted to look at birdies and bogeys on long courses, it would be sound, logical to do so. This is just my preference. We talked through the week how I think the most consistent performing scoring metric is the bogeys avoided, but it is undeniable that the top or the upper echelon players, your Jordan Spieths, your Will Zalatoris, even though he's only played it a couple times, the players that consistently have these very, very high finishes, they are more in the birdies gained. So I have 5% in birdies gained, 10% in bogeys avoided, both of those when it's difficult to par. 10% driving distance, and this is just going to get increase in importance the more rain there is. The softer the course, the less run out. That means the more carry distance you need. So I'm going to want to see driving distance. So I have that at 10%. We looked at greens and regulation heavily this week. I ended up going with greens gained on long courses, and if you recall to Monday night's show when I looked at last year's mixed condition model, not only was greens gained on long courses more predictive, strokes gained total on long courses was more predictive. So that was the justification for using long courses for this metric. So I have 15% in greens gained on long courses. I ended the mixed condition model with simply 10% in par 4s, 5% in the 450 to 500 par 4s. So you could look at it as I have 15% in this specific range and then 10% all the others. And then 15% in par 5s. We spent all week talking about how important the par 5s are. You just have to score here. So I want to see who is the best at par 5 scoring. You'll notice that there are no par 3s on here. That was one of the last cuts I made. I felt like I needed to keep the birdies gained in there. Really, I was between the birdies gained and the strokes gained par 3s. And I decided to keep birdies gained because it did show winner, or at least upper echelon success, where the par 3s were kind of hit and miss. So there's a look at my mixed condition model. Hopefully I've run through a few of the scenarios where it could be weak. Something else that is kind of inherently biased into this, because some of these metrics only use 2023 data, some of these guys, or the live players, won't have data. So they're going to be, I don't want to say, incorrectly, they just don't have data, so they're going to be lower in the analytics ranking. So make sure you understand that bias built into the mixed condition model due to the filters and the timelines that I chose. Just understand that. Are guys going to be laying up more with less fairway roll? I don't think so. I really don't think so. The new tee box on 13, Azalea, a lot of players have already said that they're going to make that a 3-shot hole already anyway. But if you are choosing to lay up, you're leaving yourself, because these greens are very, very difficult. They just are. So there's no guarantee that if you lay up, you're going to hit your wedge to your intended destination, your intended leave. Even though these greens are large in comparison by PGA Tour standards, they don't play big. There are false fronts and hazards protecting all of them. They're actually pretty small landing areas. I don't think they're going to lay up because I still think distance is going to be one of the bigger factors. And I made this mixed condition model yesterday, more last evening, before the forecast really hammered out to this. By the time when I made this mixed condition model, all of Friday kind of looked like this. So I still think distance is going to be one of the bigger factors. So I don't see players laying up in that regard. If players have the length to make it in 2, they're certainly going to try to make it in 2. That is my belief, and I could be wrong, but that is my belief in that. So there's a look at my mixed condition model for the week. Let's move to Microsoft Excel and the reveal of my rankings for the 2023 Masters. And again, a reminder: this is not taking tee times into account. This is just purely from a numbers standpoint. The analytics at Fantasy National, the attempt at making a value for a player's specific Augusta National form, and projected ownership. So there's no tee time stuff in here. But from a pure numbers standpoint, my top 10 for the 2023 Masters: Scotty Scheffler, number 1, Rory, number 2, Jon Rahm, number 3, Collin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Tony Finau, Will Zalatoris, Justin Rose, and Xander Schauffele. Most of these guys I'm not very surprised with the exception of Justin Rose. I did not think the analytics were going to be that high on him. They are. Now, his course value is very, very low. I mean, he's played this event very, very well. But I'm a little surprised at how much the analytics like him. But he doesn't have a terrible stat among the ones that we've gathered. He's been very good on approach. He's been very good at hitting greens on long courses the past couple of years. He's top 10 in par 5 scoring. So when you actually break out the data and look at it, it makes a lot more sense. But initially, I was a little surprised to see Justin Rose in the top 10. Now, you can always argue the ordering, but in terms of the players, I don't really have too much of a qualm. Unlike last week when Ryan Palmer was 5th, I was pretty adamant that I would not have made him 5th. That was just a factor of what I thought were pretty bad numbers or misleading numbers. But there's the top 10 in my rankings for the Masters this week. You'll see none of the live guys are there, but understand again that they have a little bit of built-in bias against them because some of these metrics I've only went back to the beginning of 2023, and obviously they are not on the PGA Tour anymore, so they would not have had the ability to accrue statistics. And I've not went and gathered any live statistics either. I would not be familiar with live statistics, how they're gathered, all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to fumble with it. There are other people in the industry that may have gathered that, and I would wholeheartedly suggest you go to them if you want specific live player metrics leading up to the Masters. I wasn't going to go there. I did not want to mislead my viewers when I wouldn't have known what I was going to be looking at or where to gather it, how to gather it. So just pure transparency there. But anyway, let's go ahead and sort on the price board, run through the price board and see where we think we can find some values and perhaps find our fades. So in the 10Ks this week, we have 3 players. Scotty Scheffler, your defending champion, at 11-1. John Rahm at 10-8. Rory at 10-6. Now you see, all 3 of these players are the top 3 in my rankings. Not going to be getting away from any of them. Honestly, I do think of these 3, I would probably make Rory my third. And the reason is, he is the worst of these 3 in par 5s. He's only been 20th. Now, 20th out of 90 players is not bad. It's pretty good. But I do have concerns with Rory in regards to that his game has been pretty inconsistent. Yes, he was fantastic at the match play. But if you were to take a look at his player profile in Fantasy National, and I'll do that just very, very quickly. Rory, we'll just sort on salary, make it quick. If we look at Rory, miscut at the players. Again, we don't have the match play, but he, finishes third, I think, third or fourth. He was pretty bad at the players. He played the Arnold Palmer exceptionally. Genesis and Waste Management were decent, but he's been hot and cold with the putter, mainly cold. The irons have always been there. The around the green was there, except for the players. Like I said, he's going for the career Grand Slam. He's got a lot of pressure on him in that regard. Bent is his preferred surface, although it's not, by much. Again, I'm just a little concerned with Rory with the fact of his par 5s. He's been pretty darn inconsistent. And again, we don't have the match play data, but negative at the players. And then when you runner up the Arnold Palmer, he was fantastic. The Genesis, he still made the cut, but was bad. He was fantastic at good at the Waste Management. Good at the CJ Cup. So, yeah, I am most cautious about Rory of the 3 in the 10Ks. And he's also going to be one of, if not the, most owned players. Now, that doesn't mean I'm full fading Rory. Don't get it wrong. I'm going to use Rory, but I'm certainly going to be the most cautious with him. Having said that, he does have one of the better tee times, along with Scotty Scheffler. So I'm going to use all 3 of these players. I think I'm going to have to make Scotty Scheffler number 1. He's number 1 in my rankings analytically. He's probably going to be the most owned player for good reason. He's been playing well lately. I mean, look at all these stats. Every single statistic of his is in the top 10 in this field, except for putting. So as we go across here, notice that he does not have anything outside of the top 10 other than putting, and it's 47th. So that's very, very hard to beat. It's very hard to beat. Number 1 in birdies when it's difficult. Number 1 at the length of the par 4s here. Number 1 in par 4s in general. Top 5 in par 5s. Top 5 in bogey avoidance. 3rd in irons. I'm going to make Scheffler number 1. John Rahm number 2. Rory number 3 in the 10Ks for me. Moving to the 9s, we have Cam Smith, Jordan Spieth, Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas, Max Homa, Colin Morikawa, and Xander Schauffele. All right, so now we're going to start dealing with some live players, and Cam Smith has played this event very, very well. I get it. But Jordan Spieth has played it better. Patrick Cantlay has not played this event very well at all. You see his pretty horrendous course value compared to everybody else around him. Same with Max Homa, although Max Homa's gotten a whole lot better very, very quickly. But that is something to be mindful of. He has not played the Masters very well. I really like Colin Morikawa. Yes, he lacks the distance, obviously, of these other players. But, I mean, the guy is starting to come back around. Gosh dang it. Starting to come back around with his irons. He's starting to be Colin Morikawa-like. He's also fourth in greens on long courses. Greens are just such a massive factor here at Augusta National. I really like Colin Morikawa this week. But this will be a little bit of foreshadowing on my betting card. I'm going to be all in on Justin Thomas. I think Justin Thomas is going to be your Masters champion this year. Number one in around the green, which you have to be able to navigate the trouble here at Augusta. Top 10 in par 5 scoring. The irons are also coming back to JT standards. And just like Scheffler, he doesn't have a bad statistic. He's not elite. He doesn't have top 10 in everything. But he also doesn't have any bad statistics other than the putter. And I think Bones helps him with that, with all of his experience at Augusta with Phil. So I think Bones is going to be a big factor this week. Top 5 in the specific length of par 4s. Justin Thomas has plenty of distance. So I really like Justin Thomas this week. Spieth loves the Masters, although he is coming off his first missed cut at the Masters last year. So a little bit of reason to be concerned, I would guess. In the 9Ks, again, I'm just all in on Thomas, so if he does not play well, I will lose. Love Morikawa, so he'll probably be second for me. Don't sleep on Cam Smith. He's been good here. And that ownership honestly surprises me. I would imagine he'll be a little bit more highly owned than 11%. That would be my guess. But that is also something that you will have to think about as you fill in your lineups. How do you think the general public's going to play the live guys? Are they going to play the Cam Smiths and the Dustin Johnsons, or are they going to stay away and just go with the, quote, known commodities? If Cameron Smith truly is at 11%, I think it's a good play. I mean, the guy has played very well here. And again, before he left for live, he was pretty solid with greens. He's definitely got the ability to avoid bogeys. His short game, again, even though it's blacked out here, he's very good around the green. That's what he's most known for. Cam Smith's going to be a good play. If you truly think he'll be at 11%, then fire up Cam Smith. I think he'll be a little bit more than that, so I'm going to try to be a bit more cautious with him. Jordan Spieth, that's a pretty high percentage for Jordan Spieth. But, I mean, he's playing very, very well lately. So in the 9Ks, I've been all in on JT. I really, really like Colin Morikawa despite the distance issue and the rain and all that. Colin Morikawa was built for majors. Cam Smith should be very good this week. As much as I really liked Cantlay Monday evening talking with Merck, knowing that he has a pretty bad tee time now makes me quite a bit more cautious on him. I knew the form wasn't great at Augusta, but now with the bad tee time as well, gives you a lot of reason to be concerned. Max Homa has not played this event very well, and master and performance at Augusta National is a pretty big deal. That's why you don't see first-time starters very high in my rankings. It usually takes a couple of times before players play Augusta extremely well. Of course, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, Xander, I think, is fine. It's fair, 14.5%, 15%. I think it's fair. He's been pretty middling here, but okay. Moving into the 8s, Tony Finau, DJ, Jason Day, Cameron Young, Victor Hovland, Hideki, Sam Burns, Will Zalatoris, Sung Jae, and Matt Fitzpatrick. All right, so everybody is off of Matt Fitzpatrick, at least in the fantasy national community. And I understand why. The irons haven't been good. He just hasn't played well in general. Hitting greens hasn't been good. But every time there's been a difficult tournament, I have focused on bogey avoidance. And he's one of the best at avoiding bogeys. He's very good, very, very good around the green. And Fitzpatrick has played this event very well. It's not the lowest course value, but I think it's in the top 12 or so in terms of course value. I would not sleep on Matt Fitzpatrick, especially if he's 5%. Now, I've been burned very, very many times this year already on Matt Fitzpatrick. But just like Colin Morikawa, he just seems built for majors. So I'm going to have too much exposure to Fitzpatrick. I can't say that I'm all in on him because I've been burned. But I am going to have too much exposure to Fitzpatrick based on the fact that he seems to not be getting a lot of love. It's going to be surprising to you, but I'm going to fade Sungjae. And he's not played the Masters very well at all. Now, he is the number one bogey avoider when it's difficult. But I just don't have a great feeling on Sungjae this week. So my two boldest suggestions, I think, or boldest calls, if you will, I'm all in on JT. I just picked him to win. I'm completely out on Sungjae. Just won't do it. And I believe he has one of the worst tee times. He has the worst tee time. Him, Hideki, who was the other one? I can't remember. But he's got the last tee time on Friday afternoon. So I don't want any part of that. Same kind of with Hideki, although Hideki's a former champion here. And any concerns about an injury, I think were placated last week with his pretty darn good performance at the Valero. So that's why I would be much more comfortable going to Hideki than I would be Sungjae. Even with Sungjae being one of the best wind players, I just don't want any part of it. He has the worst tee time. Awaken, thanks for jumping in chat. You can see Sungjae 20+%. Absolutely, yeah. And that's another factor to why I think I'm going to just full fade him. He hasn't played the Masters well. He's got one of the worst tee times, if not the worst tee time. It's a gut feeling on Sungjae, but Sungjae is going to be a full fade. Now Zalatoris, he has a pretty bad tee time, but I mean he averages a 4th place finish here. That's pretty tough to beat. He's not getting a whole lot of love either. I like Zalatoris. I don't see anything wrong with him. Burns is kind of interesting, although he has never played well here, so Course value is a thing here. It is. You have to have played Augusta well before I start to consider you. That's why I'm off of Cameron Young as well. Even though with all the talk of needing distance and all that stuff, Cameron Young was atrocious here last year. The irons are good, but I mean, he's not good around the green. You see it just on your screen, 49th. He's not very adept at hitting greens. He is the number one driving distance player, but he's got a lot of concerning statistics otherwise. So I'm off of Cameron Young as well. I mean, Tony Finau's also probably going to be very, very chalky, but this is chalk I won't be able to get away from. 4 events, averages a top 15 finish here at the Masters, top 5 in irons, top 5 in par 4s, which is off your screen, but he's 5th in par 4s. He's 15th in putting on bent. Tony Finau prefers bent, so I like Finau this week as well, and that's some chalk that I won't be able to get away from. But in the 8Ks, I'm off of Young. I'm completely off of Sungjae. That's a bold thing to say, but that's where I'm going to plant my flag this week. I think DJ will be fine. He'll probably be, of the live players, I would imagine he would have to be the most chalky. He really plays Augusta well. He's got the length. Again, we've talked about live a little bit, so I don't want to rehash it all, but with no data in 2023, he's probably getting deflated in ranking a little bit. So I don't know. I don't know really what I'm going to be doing with the live guys in general. There are a couple that I've focused on because I think they're going to be fairly low owned. But that DJ's not going to be one of them. He's not going to be one of the lower owned live guys. So in the 8Ks, I like Finau. Day's fine. Day's going to be, fairly chalky, but probably for good reason. He's played well here. He's had a resurgent season. Hovland should be good, but man, that around the green is scary. The around the green game is scary. He's gotten better at it, but it's still not up to major championship form, I don't think. So kind of a lukewarm feeling on Victor Hovland. If he fits in a team, great. If he doesn't, I don't have a problem, going up or going down, or maybe even using a Hideki once. And then I love Zalatoris, and I'll get burned again by Fitzpatrick this week, but I'll use him, especially at 5%. The guy just feels like he's fit for majors. Upper sevens. Don't want to go through all of these, but Shane Lowry is another player that I'm kind of out on. He doesn't have a great tee time. Don't have a good feeling for him. He's been very, very bad this calendar year in par fours and of the length of par fours. So that gives me a lot of concern considering how important the par fours are here. He's been mediocre at best on bent. A lot of things are good. I mean, he's a great, he avoids bogeys when it's difficult. The irons are okay. I'm not there with Shane Lowry. Most of the time I really like Hatton. I am nowhere near Hatton either. He hates Augusta. He hates Augusta. Again, more chalk that I won't be able to get away from. Justin Rose. Pretty darn good. He doesn't have a bad statistic across here. Top 10 in par 5s, which you have to take advantage of. Almost top 5 in greens on long courses. I like Justin Rose. Neiman's one of the few players that I could be inclined to pivot to. If he is indeed at 9%, the man is very, very talented. He has not played the best at Augusta, so that does worry me a little bit. But his iron game is superb. I can't call it elite because I haven't seen the live stuff, but it's superb. So I can see myself gravitating towards some Neiman. I don't want any part of Tom Kim. Really, don't want any part of first-time starters. And I'm sure there will be one that plays well. I won't know which one it is, so I just don't want to go there, especially since course history here is a pretty big deal. So I don't want really any part of Tom Kim, and he doesn't have a lot of distance, and you're going to need that this week. Sahith, a lot of people seem to be gravitating towards Sahith. He gets wayward quickly, and he doesn't take advantage of par 5s. So I'm not seeing Sahith. I mean, yes, it's only saying 5.5%, but I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and pundits and all that stuff that say that they like Sahith. I'm not there. The analytics hate Minwoo Lee, but he did top 15 here last year. Okay. Corey Connors going to be very, very chalky, especially off his win. I'm going to use him. I mean, he's the number 1 greens and regulation player. Very good ball striker. The around the green is what's concerning for him. Keegan, keep in mind with Keegan that bent is his best surface. And he's been a better putter this year overall. Bent is his preferred surface. But Keegan can go full Keegan at any point. So I don't know if I'm comfortable putting a lot of stock into Keegan at 74. As we move on down here, I believe it was, I don't know if it was you, Awaken. I know somebody mentioned Patrick Reed on Sunday. He was very, very bad before he left for LIV. That's what I can tell you. I mean, the guy's won the Masters before, so you can't really count him out. He's a very good short game player. He avoids bogeys. That's his best stat of the 4 that we were able to gather, but I'm just not there. Tiger has one of the worst tee times, which is unfortunate because even I was going to be considering using Tiger, and I'm usually not going there because he doesn't have stats. But he's got one of the worst tee times. Look, it's Tiger. If you want to go sentimental, use him. He's proven me wrong several times. So there you go. Hey, Joey, thanks for jumping in chat. It looks like we've got another big crowd tonight. Loving it. Going through the price board here, trying to find our pivots and our values and fades and all that. So I mentioned Neiman I could be gravitating towards a little bit. I am surprised, quite honestly, that Louis is getting as little love as he is in the analytics community, at least here at Fantasy National. He's very good at bogeys, or avoiding bogeys. He's been good at greens when it's on long courses, and he's played Augusta very, very well. Louis is one of the 2 live guys that I've been going to quite a bit. The numbers just back it up. Even with his deflated total metrics because of no 2023, he's still in the top 30. You see 18th in mine total because I'm factoring in his prior course performance, which has been very good. I like Louis Oosthuizen this week. And he's got a pretty good tee time, meaning he's teeing off early-ish on Friday morning, not dealing with a lot of that wind. So I like Louis. So take a long look at him if you aren't afraid of the live stuff there. I want to like Mitchell because I think it'll be difficult, but man, he's not been good at Augusta and he's got a bad tee time. So, He's number 2 in the field in driving distance. He's been very good at par 4s, but he's not great at avoiding bogeys when it's been difficult, which is a little surprising to see, but there it is. And the irons haven't been great either. So I'm a little scared off with Keith Mitchell. I don't want any part of Kitayama. Again, first-time starter. No thanks on Sergio. Really, Billy Horschel has not been very good here either. So I don't want any part of Billy Horschel. Don't really have any strong feeling towards or against Henley. But there's a look at the 7Ks. Kind of jumbled through that a little bit, but wanted to try to save some time for a lot of lineups. Moving to the 6s, I've got 2 to 3 players that I want to really bring to your attention. Now, your fellow contestants, or our fellow contestants, seem to be going to about 3 players. Tom Hoge, which is a good play. I mean, number 1 in irons. He just won the par 3 contest today, but he hasn't been particularly good at Augusta National. He's not, for as good as he is with his irons, he's not been great at hitting greens on long courses, so that gives me some pause. It makes me think about where he's had his most success. His win at Pebble Beach. He's been pretty good at the American Express, another short course. I don't think he does all that well on long courses, so I can see myself avoiding Tom Hoge and avoiding the quote chalk, whatever it is, 10% in the 6Ks. Now, your fellow contestants have been going to Taylor Gooch as well, and Gooch was somebody that I was kind of keyed in on. So he was the second of the live guys behind Louis that I was seeing myself going to quite a bit. I don't like the fact that he's at 9%. He's only played the Masters once, but he did top 15 last year. He tied for 14th with Minwoo and a few others. His hitting greens when it was on long courses were bad, but I mean, he avoided bogeys. I like Taylor Gooch in the 6Ks, but he's been, it seems like at least the members at Fantasy National have been gravitating towards him, so it gives me a little bit more of a pause. And the last of the players that our fellow contestants seem to be going to is Danny Willett. Okay, I guess it's around the green related. 4th and around the green. Okay, I'm not particularly there, but okay, that's fair enough. And he's pretty good at the par 5s, So I can see why they're doing that. Instead, I'm going to go to Cam Champ. And Cam Champ has a whole lot of awful statistics. His irons are bad. He hasn't been very good at par 5s this calendar year. His around the green is bad. Why am I going to Cameron Champ? Well, he's been adept at hitting greens on long courses. He's elite in driving distance, which doesn't need to, be said. He's one of the longest on tour. And for as bad of a putter as Cam Champ is, where have his wins come? They've been on bent. I believe one was on Poa, but they've been on bent. He's actually pretty mediocre on bent, which is saying something because he's generally one of the worst putters. So anytime you get Cam Champ in a non-deep red on putting, you take a look at it. And not only that, he's 2 for 2 here. Now, it's only 2 times. I get it. But he's 2 for 2 here. 2 for 2, averaged a top 20 finish. So I've been going with Cam Champ going on the course value as opposed to the analytics. So in the 6Ks, I want to gravitate your attention towards Taylor Gooch. He's going to be a little bit more chalkier than these other two, but I do like Taylor Gooch this week. Cameron Champ. And finally, which is surprising to me, Charles Schwartzel has been popping on a lot of my lists. He's former champion. He's played it pretty well. Low ownership. Top 10 in hitting greens on long courses. He's been okay at avoiding bogeys, or at least before he went to live. Look, guys in the 6Ks are going to have warts, and you're going to have to try to find some uniqueness somewhere. So I've been going to Charles Schwartzel and Cameron Champ for mine. So that's a look at what I have for you in terms of how I see the price board. Let's go make some lineups. We'll start with tiers, contests for those who play tiers, and then we'll make some classic lineups, try to figure out how we're going to maneuver around what our fellow contestants are doing. So, in Tier 1, we have Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, and Rory. Top 3 players in my rankings. I think the safest pick is probably Scotty Scheffler. I think the most volatile is Jon Rahm, meaning he has the lowest floor, but he also has the highest ceiling. Rory going for the career Grand Slam, I get it. I have my reservations, as we talked about when I revealed my top 10. I'm going to go with Scotty Scheffler in Tier 1. He's probably the chalkiest. I think he's the safest. Tier 2, Cameron Smith, Jordan Spieth, Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas, and Max Homa. Well, for the same reason that I've been all in on Justin Thomas for classic lineups, I'll go Justin Thomas in Tier 2. He's been my choice to pick this week to win the Masters. So I'm all in on Justin Thomas. Jordan Spieth is probably going to be pretty good. He always plays pretty well here, last year notwithstanding. If you want uniqueness, Cam Smith should be really good too. But I'm going to go with Justin Thomas because he's my pick to win this year. But I don't mind Spieth or Smith either. Tier 3, Colin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele, Tony Finau, Dustin Johnson, and Jason Day. I really like all 5 of these. I think Xander's 5th of these 5, surprisingly. I'm going to go with Colin Morikawa. Tony Finau has been very, very good here. But he's also the chalkiest. DJ, however you feel with the live and stuff, but I mean he's played Augusta very well. Jason Day's played very well here. I'm going to go with Colin Morikawa, hoping to gain a little bit of uniqueness. Tony Finau is also a very, very good play. I think it's between Morikawa and Finau. Again, there's nothing wrong with DJ. There's nothing wrong with J Day. I'm just going to go with Morikawa. Tier 4. Cameron Young, Victor Hovland, Hideki, Sam Burns, Will Zalatoris, Sungjae, and Terrell Hatton. This actually, for me, is the easiest tier to pick. It's Will Zalatoris. Don't care how chalky or not he is. Just give me Will Zalatoris. Until he shows that he's not going to top 10 the Masters, give me Will Zalatoris because he's averaged a 4th place finish here. So give me Will Zalatoris. None of these other players I'm really excited about. I mentioned how I'm full fading Sungjae. Hatton hates this place. Hideki could be interesting, but I mean the withdrawal risk is way too high for a tiers lineup. Cameron Young was really bad here last year, and Hovland has concerns with it around the green. Tier 5, we have Matt Fitzpatrick, Shane Lowry, Justin Rose, Joaquin Niemann, Tommy Fleetwood, Tom Kim, and Corey Connors. Connors and Rose are going to be the chalky plays. I would prefer Rose of those two. I don't mind Connors, but I think I would prefer Rose of those two. Fleetwood has been okay here. I still want to believe Niemann's going to be good here, although he hasn't played well in his 3 or 4 tournaments. So for me, I will go... Oh, boy, that's tough. I will go Justin Rose, although he is projected to be the most chalky of everybody in here. If you aren't scared of Fitzpatrick, you're going to gain a whole lot of leverage and uniqueness in a tiers lineup going Fitzpatrick, but that's a pretty big risk. Give me Rose. Fitzpatrick's very interesting. Consider it if the projected ownership holds. Finally, tier 6, we have El Tigre, Keith Mitchell, Kurt Kitayama, Sergio, Billy Horschel, Bubba Watson, and Harris English. For me, I think it's between 2 players. Bubba Watson, he's a 2-time champion. He loves his place. He's going to be very lowly owned. It's between Bubba and Tiger. For me. Tiger's got one of the worst tee times. Be aware of that. Be aware of that. He's teeing off very late on Friday, and that's when the wind's really going to start picking up. But the Tiger's proved me wrong so many times. It's between Tiger and Bubba. I will go... I would love for Tiger to make the cut just for the storyline. He's proven me wrong several times, but he also doesn't have a very good tee time. Bubba was pretty bad, though, before he left for Live, to be fair. Give me Bubba. Give me Bubba Watson. He plays Augusta so darn well. But if you want to go Tiger, I don't blame you one bit. Okay, let's start making some classic lineups and figuring out how we are going to try and beat our fellow contestants in these big GPPs. And feel free to jump in chat with any questions around player A versus player B, lineup strategy or shells, if you want to try to find 2 players or whatnot. But I am going to try to find the chalkiest lineups that I can, just to see what we need to maneuver around. So, if we're going to try to find the chalkiest lineup, looks like players or contestants are going with Scotty Scheffler. He's the most projected owned at 11-1 and just under 20%. Then it looks like they're going Tony Finau. Is this calculating right? Of course not. All right. Apologies. Let me fix my formula here. There we go. Sorry. Okay. 7,500 per. If our fellow contestants are coming down into the 6Ks, it's Danny Willett at 10.2. We also got Keith Mitchell at 10.8. That's really where it kind of bottoms out. So, you know what? Let's just go ahead and go Danny Willett, because I imagine most lineups will have at least one 6K. So from here, if you think that your other fellow contestants are going into a second 8K, it's Sungjae. Yeah. And then you have Corey Connors. Justin Rose is just... Yeah. So it'd be something like Tommy Fleetwood and Corey Connors. And that's at 16%. That sounds like a lot. It's actually... it's high, but it's not as high as you might think, just because there's only 90 players in this field. Let's see if there's any. Is there any way we can perhaps increase this? Maybe Justin Rose, Corey Connors. What's that leave us with? 65. That's even less than. Danny Willett's at 66. Damn it. Well, this is 100 over, but just to give you an idea, there's the 16.4. So there's a look at a shell, probably going Scheffler or Rory. Then dropping down either, Finau, maybe Morikawa. Sungjae's getting a whole lot of love, and then on down the list. If your fellow contestants aren't going into the 10Ks, if they're building these balanced-ish lineups, it looks like they're going Jordan Spieth. I'm going to try to use different names here. We'll go Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas. Again, it's Sungjae. He's at 18.5%. Rose is getting a lot. Corey Connors. And then 75. Not a whole lot here. Looks like Siwoo and Patrick Reed. Keith Mitchell also getting some love. There's a slightly under 16% different kind of look. More of a balanced look. Spieth, Thomas, M. And Rose, Connors. And of course, move these players around, if you will. They could be going Keith Mitchell to bottom out. Maybe going Rory. Rory. We'll throw Colin into one of these. Victor getting some love. Victor Minwoo Lee getting some love, and then at 71 is Keith Mitchell. Who else at 71? Not really a whole lot, so you'd have to back off somebody here. Maybe go Connors again. No, son of a bitch. Let's see. Patrick Reed. What's that leave us with? 74? Siwoo. So Siwoo and Patrick Reed. Another look. It's going to be a lot less ownership. Just trying to find different names for you that players are gravitating towards or contestants are gravitating towards. All right. If we're going to move around this chalk, there's two lines of thinking. You either get your uniqueness in the players that you use, which sounds obvious, but you would be going to, say, Cameron Smith instead of Jordan Spieth. You'd be going to Max Homa or DJ maybe instead of those other players. Or what I think I'm going to recommend this week, and what normally I would recommend in a major, is the type of lineup, and you have to be willing to accept a whole lot of risk. What I mean, superstars and super scrubs. Something to the effect of, we'll go Jon Rahm, just because he's the least owned of these 10Ks. We'll go Jon Rahm. We'll go Justin Thomas. I mean, he is my pick to win, so we'll go Justin Thomas. And we'll go to the 6Ks twice. Superstars, super scrubs. And that's why I gave you 3 or 4 names to look at in the 6Ks. Now, Taylor Gooch is going to be probably one of the more popular 6Ks, but I do like that play. Cameron Champ is somebody that I've been gravitating towards. Charles Schwartzel's been popping on my list quite a bit. I didn't talk about Harold Varner. I don't mind Varner either this week. So, yes, one of these players is going to up the expected ownership a little bit. But I'm going to go with Gooch and Champ. It still leaves us a little more than 8,000 per. We're sitting at just over 8%. Depending on, if you wanted to balance this out and go a couple 8s, maybe you want to go with another 7 and maybe try to squeeze in Tony Finau, which would be very chalky, but banking on your uniqueness being in the lineup, style, superstar, super scrub. If you did that, you would go Tony Finau. 7,600 would be Corey Connors, would probably be pretty darn chalky. 70. I mean, you can go LT Gray. Yeah, 12.5% there. I'm not in love with it, but I think me personally, I feel like I've taken enough risk going into the double sixes. I would probably try to balance this out. Again, I don't understand why Will Zalatoris is getting only 11%, if I could spell. only at 11% projected owned at 8,200. It still leaves us 8,300 per. Not a whole lot of players I like in and around this area. Like Fitzpatrick would be a very unique option. He's very volatile. He's a lot of people probably don't want to take the risk, but 11% in a 90-player field in which you have to understand majority of your fellow contestants have written off a whole lot of these players. I don't know how many of your fellow contestants are going to be using any amateurs. How many of your contestants are going to be using, lifetime champions or whatever, Bernhard Longer, Sandy Lyle, VJ. Like, this really is like a 60-player field. So to get a lineup that's sub 11% is pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. Sepp Straka, I'm not quite there with him. I believe he's only played this event once, so it was a 30th. You see, the irons, they've been very, very good, which is, honestly, it's surprising to me. But he has a bevy of a whole lot of red here. Hitting greens is not his specialty. When he does hit, when he doesn't hit greens, he hasn't been great around the green. He's not particularly great at avoiding bogeys when it's difficult. If you want to believe in the irons, he's also been playing the par fours exceptionally well. There's enough to go here, Awaken. I won't deter you from that, and you're probably going to be gaining a whole lot of uniqueness there. But if Sepp Straka were any better around the green, I would really consider it. But since he has not been very good at hitting greens on long courses, and he's not been good around the green, that just spells disaster. It does. It just spells disaster here. And he's not been taking advantage of the par fives either, which you have to do here. I don't hate it. Again, just full transparency, I'm surprised he's 8th in this field in iron play, but this calendar year he's top 10 in iron play, so you might be onto something there. I've been more going to Charles Schwartzel, again, because I'm a big believer that greens in regulation are going to be such a big thing here. He has just always played the Masters pretty darn well. That's where I'm at, but okay. So if you throw Sepp Straka into this, also was looking at Svensson and K.H. Lee. Svensson, no, he's usually best on easy courses. Svensson and K.H. Lee. So here's K.H. Again, I think this is only one time, so I don't want to get too hung up on the course value, but he has shown he didn't like it last year. Now, the around the green is fantastic for K.H. Lee, so there's something there, sure. And he's putt well on bit. Okay. Par fours have been pretty bad. He doesn't have a lot of distance, nor does Vincent. And you're going to need distance if the rain does, in fact, come like the forecast has been predicting. Both of these have been very good at putting on bent. Yeah. Of the two, I would go K.H. Lee. Again, Svensson being a first-time starter is very, very troubling. Not to say that he can't play well here. Some first-time starters do. But generally speaking, you have to have some modicum of knowledge of Augusta before you really start to play it well. So of those two, between K.H. Lee and Svensson, give me K.H. Lee. But of the three you've said, I mean, I think Sepp Straka would probably be my pick of those three. Seeing the fact that he's been very good with his irons. Again, I'm not there, but I can see it. Every 6K is going to have a wart or two. And Sepp Straka's been 6th in the 450 to 500 par 4s. So if you're willing to go as far down as Sepp Straka, you're going to be gaining uniqueness and pricing. Like, goodness gracious, I don't know, I have no idea who you're looking at in terms of the upper part of the leaderboard or price board, excuse me. But if you say you want to go like a Rory, try to get you some amount of uniqueness here. Rory, maybe a Cameron Smith, who I still think is going to be pretty darn good here. Oh boy, you might be able to take a Tony Finau. Maybe not. Rory, Smith, Hovland, maybe. I'm a little bit less on Hovland, but it could work. Was locked in on Rory and Spieth. Okay, so that answers that. Rory, Spieth. That's pretty darn chalky to start, so you're going to have to find some uniqueness. I think you would probably need to find maybe one more player of some uniqueness, or go superstars, super scrubs if you're looking at this type of, or at least this boundary in terms of your players. Let's see, you probably wouldn't be able to go something like Justin Rose or Sung Jae, which again I'm completely out on Sung Jae, but probably have to go somewhere. Had Willett got safety. Willett's going to be the most chalky 10K or 6K. That's what I'll tell you. He's over 10% projected owned. I'm nowhere near Cameron Young. You and I will differ on that, but I do love the Will Zalatoris. So we'll go Zalatoris, and then let's throw in a couple other players here. I don't hate Joaquin Niemann. And then 74, Tiger, Louis. Again, that's a couple of live players. Don't know how you feel about live guys, but I've really gravitated towards Louis. He's always played this event well. Joaquin Niemann's quite speculative, I get it. I'm just nowhere near Cameron Young, and I love the Will Zalatoris. Let's see. Other areas that I've been going. If I were to try to find a balanced build in here, it's pretty tough. I've been going more so with the idea of the lineup being unique, meaning superstars, super scrubs. But if I were to go a balanced build and try to be unique in that sense, again, I'm only using Thomas so much because he's my pick to win. I think he's going to be good. Max Homa, probably okay. Xander's probably okay. I really like Cam Smith. I have to think he's going to be a little bit more than 11% owned. But I'll go Thomas Morikawa, and I'll bottom out at Louis, like I've mentioned that I'm pretty high on. Still got 8K per. Going to try to use a few different names, hopefully. Although Will Zalatoris is just kind of staring at me in the face. Yeah, I guess maybe Victor. Will 77 is Tommy Fleetwood, very chalky, but Corey Connors, very chalky. But there's a lineup that, is probably middling in terms of percent owned. Not having to drop into the 6Ks. Louis been very good here. Connors is in fantastic form. Will Zalatoris and his performance historically at the Masters. Again, I'm just very, very high on Colin Morikawa this week. Thomas is my winner, or my pick to win. So I'll stick around for a couple more questions if chat has it. Otherwise, put it in chat or put it in the comments. Who do you think, who's your winner this year for the Masters? Do you think Rory completes the Grand Slam? Do you think Scheffler goes back-to-back? What kind of wagers have you made? I've certainly made, I've only made one outright win wager, but I've put in quite a few parlays. What are you all looking for in terms of who are your pivots, who are your fades, storylines? How much are you factoring in the wind forecast? Which the vision will be skewed, but I'll bring that up again just very, very quickly. You see here, Friday morning, solid. Friday afternoon, horrendous. So take that what you will. But that is what I have for you all in terms of the Masters DFS Tactics show. I appreciate everybody that came in to chat. I want to thank you all for doing so. P and James, Awaken, Joey, really appreciate it. I know all of you jump into chat when you're able to catch the show. It means a lot. I enjoy what I do. I'm glad that, whatever amount, whatever you all take from my shows, however little, however much, it's just always appreciated that you all come back show after show, and we have a little bit of fun. Again, congratulations to my friend Bobo, who had the outright ticket on Connecticut to win the national championship. I, too, also had Connecticut or UConn to win the national championship, so that gives me a little bit of buffer, protection, whatever you want to call it, for the Masters this week. Hopefully that's just a sign of things to come for the entire week. Friday, I'm going to try to be live for perhaps some weekend showdown type stuff. Also, I've been doing some baseball, so we can perhaps take a look at that, but that'll all be weather dependent, as I live in the Midwest and we had tornadoes around here today even, so it's all dependent on weather. But thanks to everyone who jumped in chat. Thanks to everyone else out there who watched, listens, supports the channel with comments, subscribing, liking the videos. Always appreciated. For all of the wagers that you have made this week for the Masters, for all the DFS contests you've entered this week for the Masters, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.